Welcome back, everybody. We have today YouTube's Darkest Videos number 7 by the one and only Nick Crowley. Hopefully this is less disturbing than the one he posted previously, because that was a doozy. Oh gosh.
It's December 4th, 2003.
That's creepy. What's going on?
I'm gonna go try to get them to stop doing that.
A police officer walking in a local park in Arlington, Virginia, is approached by a concerned family, claiming that someone in a nearby neighborhood had been shooting off a flare gun. The officer could hear it too, and following the sound, he eventually found himself at the home of 56-year-old James Yoo. The man lived alone in his half of this duplex, and was described by neighbors as a recluse known to exhibit unusual behavior. Across his social media, he made posts claiming that he was the victim of fraud at the hands of all sorts of government agencies, as he had a deep distrust of the US government as well as law enforcement, and he believed that numerous people were attempting to kill him, like his ex-wife, the FBI, and even his neighbors. His posts seemed entirely nonsensical, and so did many of his actions. In the months prior, he had covered up all of his windows with garbage bags and aluminum foil, and he even wrapped his trees in toilet paper. And though these actions are entirely harmless, on this day, things were becoming far more troubling.
Oh God.
When police arrived at his home, you would be seen firing his flare gun out of his window and into the air, over and over again. And despite repeated attempts to get him to stop,
Arlington County Police! Stop shooting the flares!
What the?
Mr. Yoo!
he didn't let up, shooting 41 flares in the span of just 25 minutes. And he did it all with no explanation. In fact, he didn't even say a single word.
What?
Understandably, police were eager to get Yoo out of his home for questioning, as at this point it wasn't obvious whether or not he was a threat. And so for hours and hours they called out to him, first asking and then demanding that he exit his home.
Hours and hours of asking him to come out of his home? It really took them that long to get him to comply? I mean, I don't know if he will comply at all. He might actually be pretty insane. All the symptoms of a crazy person is really there. If this is not the first time he's done this, then I'm really surprised that he hasn't been cited for doing that, you know, gotten in trouble for this. It's everything so, you know, unusual about this situation. I just would assume that cops would probably subdue, you know, the suspect faster than a couple of hours if they're shooting a flare gun. I mean, who knows? Do you have any other guns in your house? I mean, I know it's a flare gun, but, you know, if he's so comfortable with shooting a flare gun outside of a residential street, then what else is he comfortable doing? Because it seems like he has, you know, no type of chill.
James, Arlington Police, come to the front door with your hands up. Do it now.
Oh, is this like
your building surrounded.
But still, there was no response. Growing impatient and worried that Yoo might be planning something, the police would eventually bring in a specialized vehicle to bust down the door and spray the inside of the home with gas, all in an attempt to draw Yoo outside.
James, stay away from your front door.
Now this is more like it.
Stay away from your front door, James.
Because you just don't know. Just don't know, man.
In response, Yoo began firing once again. Only this time, he wasn't using flares.
Oh God. Jesus.
And instead, he was now yielding an actual gun.
Oh my God.
Thankfully, none of these shots connected, but with the situation becoming increasingly dangerous, the officers decided to fall back, as they carefully came up with a new plan for apprehending Yoo, though whatever they had been planning would never come to fruition.
Imagine being a neighbor. Oh wait, this story actually sounds very familiar. Does he blow up his house? I think he blows up his house. I could be wrong, but this story kind of sounds oddly familiar.
Yeah.
I think it happens. Knew it. I knew it. I knew it, bro. I knew it. Holy Yo. Oh my God. Jesus.
In a split second, the home was gone, as a massive explosion rang out from inside the house, reducing the entire structure to rubble.
I remember hearing this story. I don't know how long ago this story was published, but when I first saw this, I was like, what the fuck? Who blew up their house? But yeah, this was insane, man. I mean, I hope nobody was next door to this guy, you know, because they would probably have died from the explosion. But I have no idea what this guy's deal was.
Inside the house, Yoo had stored 55 gallons of gasoline in his basement,
50?
which he saved for that moment to ignite with no warning and no explanation.
Yo.
Based on the footage, it's been theorized that Yoo's actions were an attempt to lure police into his home so that he could then set off this explosion and take them all out along with his neighbors, as he genuinely believed that both parties were conspiring to kill him. Though somehow, when the smoke cleared, no civilians or police officers had so much as been injured.
Thank
all
goodness.
that was found in the rubble was the remnants of a single body.
Jesus.
Though for a moment, this wasn't the end of James Yoo's story. Before that body could be identified, reports across social media began emerging showing that James Yoo was somehow still alive.
What?
After the blast, comments were being made on what appeared to be Yoo's YouTube channel, where he stated that this whole thing was a cover-up and that he wasn't even inside the home when the standoff started, which looking back, we never actually see him, and we also never hear his voice. Numerous posts pointing out this development would go viral and cause mass confusion about the story, which was only heightened when it was revealed that the body inside that building was in fact James Yoo. Though in the end, it wasn't really as mysterious as some originally thought. As it turns out, the post showing these comments failed to realize that this wasn't actually Yoo's account, and instead it had a completely different username, with the account likely having been created as nothing more than a hoax.
Oh.
To this day though, there are some that still believe that this was all some sort of massive cover-up, but in reality it just seems that this was the result of a man gripped by crippling paranoia and loneliness, with it all coming to a head in what has gone on to become one of YouTube's darkest videos.
I mean, honestly, dude, I gotta say though, crippling loneliness paired with paranoia definitely has to be a recipe for disaster. Now, I think we've all been lonely at certain times in our lives and maybe a little bit paranoid, you know, but living like that for a long extended period of time is just unhealthy. You become just a echo chamber of these irrational thoughts that nobody can help you with. You have nobody to really talk to. You're not really seeking help. So all these ideas, good or bad, are being bounced around just to yourself. So I think that in that case, he needed to get some help, but you have to also come to that realization and have a certain level of self-awareness about that whole thing. So unfortunately, it seems like it didn't happen for him. God, this background is so creepy. Chapter 2. Dreamspace 2006 footage?
There was really nothing else like it.
Whoa.
This obscure 27,000 square foot structure allowed visitors to enter into what must have felt like another dimension. It was an exhibit called Dreamspace, and was the creation of British artist Maurice Agus, a 74-year-old artistic visionary obsessed with the idea of creating large-scale surreal environments, and this was his magnum opus. The structure was inflatable, akin to a massive bounce house, and once inside, guests were confronted with a labyrinth of brightly colored walls and cells, twisting and turning into some sort of surreal maze
That looks pretty cool,
patrons
actually.
were told to lose themselves in. This piece of art premiered back in 2004, and due to its inflatability, it was actually built to travel, making stops in major cities in the UK, before it was eventually set up at Riverside Park in Durham on the 22nd of June, 2006. The very next day, 68-year-old Elizabeth Collins would visit the area with her husband and her daughter, as well as her 14-year-old grandson. And spotting this unusual structure in the distance, Elizabeth's grandson insisted on checking it out, excitedly taking off his shoes and running inside. And while the rest of the group was more apprehensive about entering, Elizabeth eventually decided to accompany him, leaving her husband and daughter on the outside. though not before turning back to them and joking that she was going in to find peace and serenity. Outside, Elizabeth's husband and daughter sat at a nearby table and enjoyed a cup of tea whilst conversing about the events of the week, only for the man to turn his head and notice that Dreamspace was slightly moving, to which he excitedly said, "Oh, it's a ride, it's a ride. I wish I had gone on it." The daughter then turned her head to see the structure as it began to rise up off the ground, to which she chillingly responded,
Oh no.
"It's not a ride."
No. Oh God. They didn't tie it down good enough? The pure horror that I would feel if I was trapped in this thing and the wind just picked up the whole contraption and just like threw us in the air and we're just like floating. I would be scared shitless. And what if you like landed like in the ocean or something? I don't know how far they are from the beach or something, but Jesus Christ. Oh my God. Oh, okay. It doesn't go in the air, but oh my God.
In that moment, Dreamspace had snapped from its moorings and was blown into the air by a massive gust of wind.
Damn.
Agus just so happened to be standing at the entrance as it began to shift, and noticing what was happening, he grabbed on as he desperately tried to hold down his entire life's work.
You're not gonna get
clearly
that.
This was of no use.
There's no
and
way.
after being lifted in the air, his grip failed, sending him falling back to the ground below, where he lay staring up at his creation.
Damn.
That was now flying 30 feet above him.
I mean, there's no way you're gonna be able to stop that. That huge thing? No way. No freaking way. It looks like it didn't go very far. I was thinking that this thing was gonna be in the air.
People who were now being thrashed around this giant inflatable structure in a scene that I truly can't even imagine. The claustrophobia of it, the dizzying colors, the screams. It's genuinely one of the most horrific scenarios I've ever heard.
Jesus.
The inflatable structure was airborne for well over a minute, folding into itself before finally crashing back down into a parking lot, leaving behind what was described by witnesses as a field of bodies.
Field of bodies.
Worst of all, the majority of those in attendance were families with small children, with one 7-year-old girl recounting her experience, saying, "It was very scary and people were screaming. I saw a lady clinging on and then falling out, and then she was lying on her back with people around her. I think she died."
Damn.
This lady was most likely 68-year-old Elizabeth Collins, who had been ejected from the structure when it was in the air, with her injuries being catastrophic and unsurvivable. Of all the others now sprawled throughout this field of grass, most were left injured, but thankfully not in serious condition. Though this wasn't the case for 38-year-old Claire Fromage, who had been inside during the accident with her 2 children. And despite her kids surviving, she was sadly not so lucky, with Claire and Elizabeth being the sole fatalities of the incident. The video is terrifying, and though it's easy to say that this could have been so much worse, considering how many people were in Dreamspace at the time, the consequences were still catastrophic, as it devastated 2 families and likely left many others at the scene traumatized for life, especially the young children.
I would have sued the absolute dog out of this guy who made this whole thing. The concept of this thing isn't a bad idea, you know, but you gotta think about stuff like this. I personally don't know if he just had a relapse of judgment, or it seems like he just didn't tie everything down, or I don't know if the gust of wind undid some things, but you got to make sure everything is secure, man. I mean, there's kids and families going up in this thing, man. I mean, this has got to be the worst case scenario for this type of thing, you know?
But how could this have happened? Well, that day was particularly warm, which likely caused the air inside the structure to expand, causing a hot air balloon-like effect, which was then exacerbated by sudden strong gusts of wind, which eventually caused the structure to go airborne, as in the end, it just wasn't properly secured for the conditions. Soon after the incident, Maurice Agus was arrested for manslaughter, though he would ultimately only end up paying a small fine, as he vowed to never create a large work again.
You mean to tell me he only got a small fine for this? For 2 people dying, only a small fine? How are you not in jail?
Just a few years later in 2009, Maurice Agus would pass away, with his legacy forever being defined by this devastating footage.
I mean, what do you expect? You didn't tie it down good enough.
Happy birthday to
Jesus.
you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Serena.
On October 2nd, 2006, police entered the home of 31-year-old Elaine Campione, where inside they found the woman speaking incoherently. Next to her was a VHS camera, depicting a series of disturbing events that had transpired within the home over the previous months and days.
Oh gosh.
With the footage eventually finding its way onto YouTube.
And
Hi, Serena. It's August 8th, 2006. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
The tape starts with Elaine pointing her new camera at her daughter Serena. It was her 3rd birthday, and to celebrate, Elaine had left a brand new bike in the living room.
man,
What is it?
It's a bike.
Days later, the footage continues, showing Serena once again as Elaine asks,
How does Mama love you?
anytime I see like an old VHS tape, I get like an influx of just past childhood memories, I guess, and just pure nostalgia from the 90s. I don't know if anybody else feels that way, but I definitely do.
This much.
Oh, I love you more than that. How much does your Mama love you?
Elaine then shows her other daughter Sophia, who was just a baby, before turning the camera on herself and showing the kids how the device worked.
Hi. See how the camcorder works?
This feels really eerie.
Look. Hi. Is that Mommy? Hi.
So far, the footage seems like nothing more than your standard family home videotape, and
Right.
appears completely wholesome. Though with the next recording, the tone begins to shift, and things start to become slightly concerning.
This is a deplorable, horrible, messy, filthy apartment that supposedly my 2 children and I live in, and it's just a horrible, horrible mess.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. I think Diego Campione is totally in the wrong, and I hope he burns in hell for all his sins.
Must be.
The same as Leonardo.
As Elaine shows the camera
Must
her
be
home,
her
she
husband?
begins joking about how they are
Or
living
her
in
ex?
deplorable conditions, before randomly calling out 2 men who she says she hopes burn in hell, all while her children are in the same room. She starts to grow more and more agitated.
All I wanted to do was take care of my 2 little girls and live happily ever after the 3 years of physical, emotional, and mental abuse that I endured tremendously by Leonardo Campione, and then the past year from Anna and Diego Campione, the mental and emotional abuse.
Outright saying that she was abused by a man named Leonard Campione, who happened to be her ex-husband and the
that's what
father
I
of these
thought.
children.
what I
And she
thought.
goes on from there, with each moment clearly making the kids more and more anxious.
Justice to my family for what they involved in.
Yeah, it's. I don't know what happened between them, but obviously she is emotionally scarred by the situation. And my goodness, I just really hope. And I realize I know what kind of video I'm watching, but God, it just makes you feel like the sense of dread that you feel when you kind of know where this is gonna go. Probably what I'm assuming, and I could be wrong, is she is so emotionally and mentally scarred. I hope she does not take it out on her kids in some way, shape, or form. I hope it's not what I'm thinking. So
To us. I cried out for help. They should have charged him for the assaults he did to me.
Eventually causing Elaine to snap out of it.
and it's kind of crazy because kids are so impressionable and they sense when you're not feeling that great about yourself. Kids are very honest, very, very honest. So them hearing their mother say that stuff, they may not know the context of what really is happening with her, but they feel like a shift in behavior. And it just seems like that's what that kid was seeing.
Stop the camera.
And my poor 3-year-old, I did everything to protect. And what are you saying, Sophia? What do you want?
The video then skips forward once more, with this footage being taken just days before the police were called, showing Serena coloring on the floor as Elaine asks,
Who loves ya?
Mommy.
Who loves you the most? That much? Oh, I think I love you more than that.
The scene that unfolds next was recorded on that very same night, just hours later.
Recording this because Leo and I are very happy. Everything is gone. You wouldn't give peace. You wouldn't tell the truth. You didn't care about our babies. You didn't care about me. You care about yourself. All you did was hurt us.
In the video, Elaine states that everything is gone as she speaks to Leo directly, accusing him of having ruined their lives with his constant abuse.
You are truly the devil. And I hate you. 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 And I want you to know how much I hate you.
Jesus.
Disturbingly, the children were nowhere to be seen in this footage, with Elaine eventually addressing them by saying,
God believes me. And God's taking care of them now.
I knew it. I knew it, man. I had a hunch, but I wasn't quite sure. But then I remembered what kind of video I'm watching. Gosh, man. Now, I don't know why her and her husband broke up, right? That guy may have very well been a horrible person, right? And whatever transpired has left her emotionally and mentally scarred, right? But why take it out on the kids? Why? What do they have to do with anything? They didn't ask to be in this world, you know? You guys brought them in this world, and now they're looking up to you for guidance and just support. All that stuff that's going on between you and your husband, I get it's very hurtful. It's, awful, whatever it might be. I don't know if Nick's going to probably explain. He probably will. But I just don't get how you can bring yourself to hurt your kids just because, and I'm only guessing, just because you feel like this is some way getting back at your ex-husband. I don't know if that's the case here, but how on earth could you hurt your kids? I know that you're in this state of misery and whatever had happened, but why take it out on the kids, man? Why? I don't understand. I personally don't get it, man.
Be protected by God, thank God, and thank Him. Because there's no way I could have them with you. Nothing's good enough for you. It has to always be your way. Well, they're good. And you can have it your way. Your wife and your daughters are dead now. We're all in heaven.
According to Elaine, not only were her children gone, but she was too. She stops the recording soon after. Despite saying this, the camera would actually start up one more time, where Elaine describes how she was still alive, despite having attempted to OD, which prompted her to call the police. When officers arrived at the home, both Serena and Sophia were found laying in her mother's bed, holding hands, and wrapped tightly in rosaries. Neither of them were alive. 2 nights prior, and directly before filming this message, Elaine had brought them both into the bathroom, as it was time for their nightly baths. And once in the tub, she told them to play a game, one where they would place their heads beneath the water and blow out bubbles.
Oh my...
When they did this, Elaine held their heads down, and she did...
Yeah, dude, I can't even look at this, man. I can't. And what I feel like this is she thinks that she, in some weird way, getting payback for her husband for what he did to her. But your children are not like pawns, man. I feel so bad for them because they're in the midst of your squabble, pretty much. They got nothing to do with what is going on between you and your ex-husband. Why involve them? So you did this to somehow get back at your husband so he can feel bad for whatever he did? Because I've heard so many stories where kids are just bargaining chips, pawns. They're not getting the love and the support that they need, and their parents just use them to get back at the other, because of, some petty reason. One of them did something to the other, so now I don't want you to see your kids. And now, I mean, it's so sad to see something like this, man. And I honestly feel like that's why she did it. That's the explanation.
Didn't let go until she was certain they were gone. This footage is some of the most disturbing that I've ever seen, as we get a glimpse into Elaine's descent into madness in the moments directly before she stole her children's lives. But all of this leaves one obvious question. Why? Well, it was noted during her investigation that the abuse she alleged from her ex-husband Leo seemed to be very real and well documented over the years, leading to Leo not being able to see his children for over a year, with this causing the two to separate, which is when Elaine's mind began to deteriorate. She began believing that people were following her and were going to kill her, with this fear of people eventually shifting to a fear of aliens, as she claimed to have seen them on numerous occasions, believing they were following her.
What?
Because of this fear, she refused to let her children out of her sight, not even allowing her own parents to look after them, causing her to become so attached to these children that she genuinely began to believe that they were all one entity, which made things incredibly concerning when she became suicidal and eventually attempted to take her own life.
Oh my god.
Despite Leo's more than troubled history, he had supposedly turned his life around in the years leading to this footage, and was eventually allowed to start visiting the children on a limited capacity. And seeing the children and seeing the way their mother was behaving, he began to grow incredibly concerned, and eventually attempted to gain full custody.
As he should.
And it was this bitter custody battle that seemed to be the ultimate factor that led to Elaine ending the lives of her children.
God's taking care of them now.
This is...
He protects.
Oh, this pisses me off, man. This does. Now, to her defense, I believe that nobody should ever have to deal with an abusive spouse or partner or whatever. I mean, who's to say that if she didn't get abused by her ex-husband, maybe her kids would still be here? That's plausible. I don't think that really lets her off the hook, because at the end of the day, her kids are not there because she unalived them. Now, I do think her husband obviously plays a major role in all of this, because his abuse to her caused her to possibly be this distraught to the point where it made her psychologically unfit and mentally unwell to take care of her daughters. Yeah, I think it's just a bad situation all the way around.
Thank God, thank God, thank you. Because there's no way I could have them with you.
Elaine Campione would be charged with 2 counts of murder and would eventually be sentenced to life in prison, with a possibility of parole after 25 years.
Jeez.
Today, she's held in a minimum security prison, where she's free to leave once every weekend to attend church and other functions.
How could you even...
No, I've been no...
How do you even have it in your heart and soul to do that to your own kids, man? Alright, I'm off it. Man. There's a lot more information on this case that I had to cut due to the time constraints. I'll link some deep dive videos below for those wanting more context. I actually might check that out, because I want to know, did she exhibit anything prior to this happening? Because I don't know if someone just does that, I don't know. Gavin Collins, road rage? Oh gosh.
On April 18th, 2010, a 39-year-old man named Gavin Collins was released from the HMP Ranby prison in the UK. His freedom would last less than 24 hours, as the very next day he suffered a severe mental breakdown, the result of which was captured partially across several video recordings that later appeared on YouTube. This is the story of his rampage.
Jesus. Nightmare fuel.
It began at approximately 9 a.m. in the city of Nottinghamshire when Gavin left his home. As he walked down the sidewalk, those in the area reported him acting strangely, muttering to himself that he was Jesus and that he was invincible. Without warning, he then turned his attention to a random home, which he forcefully entered, stole a man's car keys, and took his vehicle, taking off with no apparent destination. Inside the car, the owner just so happened to have two cameras, one being a standard dash cam and the other facing inside the vehicle, giving us a look at Gavin and his apparent mental state.
Oh yeah, he is tweaking.
I'll shut you out with the eyesight I've got. Hey, don't eat this. Come on, let's go, bro. So getting rid of all that crap is. Let's go! Let's go!
He looks like
just at a
Baltimore
glance, it's
from
obvious
Harry
that
Potter.
Gavin is completely unhinged. For some reason, he was utterly filled with rage, ripping off the rearview mirror and yelling obscenities and incomprehensible threats at no one in particular.
I'm enraged! I'm Jesus! I'm descendant of God! And you lock me up! Watch this! You
Damn, how fast is this guy
And most
going?
concerning of all is the speed in which he's traveling, as he starts driving faster and faster, swerving in and out of cars as he passes through busy residential areas, as he reaches speeds that have been estimated to be anywhere from 85 miles an hour to well over 120.
watch this now! I'm getting stronger and stronger!
He's about to.
Second!
But somehow, despite countless close calls, every time he avoids collision. At least for the time being.
I'm honestly really impressed that this man has not crashed yet. Oh, there it is. Ooh. Ooh.
In an instant, Gavin smashes the vehicle into a brick home at full speed, with the impact being devastating. And yet somehow, through the destruction, Gavin was not only still alive, but completely unharmed, and also completely unfazed. He pulled himself from the wreckage and immediately turned his attention to a woman driving nearby.
What?
And within moments, he had forced his way into the vehicle. And
He was completely unharmed after running 120 miles an hour into a brick home? Dude, I've heard people get killed for way less. Jesus Christ. How lucky of an individual do you have to be to just, I'm actually okay. Let me go and hijack this other person's car. Bro, what? That is insane luck, man.
behind the wheel once again, continuing this deranged driving spree until once again he crashed. And much like the initial collision, he survived, walking away unscathed before turning his attention to another random home.
This dude might be Jesus.
In pursuit of stealing his third vehicle, he grabbed a nearby concrete slab and began to smash through the home's doors, bloodying his hand in the process, before eventually making entry. Inside were a mother and her two children, one of which was 5 years old, and the other wasn't even a year. Gavin approached the terrified family, yelling and demanding that the mother give up her car keys, telling her that he was Jesus and that, because I am Jesus, I will kill you if you don't give me the keys. And without hesitation, she did as he said. Gavin then went to each member of the family, and with his injured hand, he drew crosses on their forehead, out of his own blood, before taking off with his third stolen car.
Jesus Christ, man. Tell you what, though, this wouldn't happen in America.
Once again, Gavin was driving manically, though this time he was even more reckless, crashing into a brick wall and then a cop car.
Oh my gosh.
Before setting his sights on a pedestrian. While speeding through a neighborhood, Gavin would see a man standing innocently near a bus stop, and for whatever reason, the sight of this man enraged him, causing Gavin to slam on the brakes and reverse the vehicle, stepping on the gas as hard as he could, and crashing directly into him, leaving him lying there with devastating injuries. Gavin quickly exited the vehicle and found the man lying motionless on the ground, prompting him to shout, "I've killed him. I've killed the devil." Minutes later, Gavin would crash yet another car into yet another home, though this time the police weren't far behind.
Jesus Christ, dude. And you're telling me this was all on YouTube?
This way.
I would have been tased him.
Oh no!
That's wild, bro.
Finally bringing his disturbed driving spree to an end.
Jesus.
The man that Gavin had struck was 87-year-old Terry Radford, a retired teacher whose injuries were catastrophic, with the man passing away soon after. According to his family, Terry was an incredible grandfather, father, and son.
there's a lot of things that could take you out of this world, but you know, even when you're minding your own business and you're actually in a good place, you're not really in a dangerous place. I mean, in this case, the right place at the wrong time, you could still, you know, lose your life by some maniac. The way that this particular section of the video was going, I thought he was going to kill like way more people, but I'm actually surprised that he didn't, because he was going crazy fast and entering and breaking into people's houses and asking for their keys. Yeah, weird stuff.
The footage is genuinely horrifying, but what's most shocking of all is the fact that any of this was even allowed to happen. As stated previously, this was Gavin's very first day out of prison, and based on the behavior he exhibited whilst in prison, he really should have never been released.
For real?
Gavin was granted an early release in March of 2019 for charges based around burglary, but just as he was set to be freed, it was discovered that he had submitted an adulterated drug test, which caused his case to be re-examined and resulted in his release being postponed. In response, Gavin lost his mind. Later that month, he assaulted a prison guard before spraying him with an unknown liquid that contained bleach, before proceeding to set his cell on fire and attacking another officer with a piece of wood. Due to his actions, Gavin was placed into an isolated cell, where less than a week later, he started yet another fire, and when an officer entered his cell to put it out, Gavin struck them in the head and pulled out a plastic knife, threatening to slash him, stating that it would be a thrill to kill him. Gavin's stay in prison clearly hadn't rehabilitated him. In fact, it seemed to have made him more violent than ever before, and more mentally disturbed.
And you let him go for what? Why would you let him go out of all the people in that prison? If he's lighting cells on fire, trying to threaten the COs, it's like, if he's doing all this, why would you ever release him?
Despite all of these additional crimes, Collins' release would go on to be approved less than 2 weeks later, with Gavin being set
2 weeks later. Oh yeah, get this judge out of here. What are you talking about? What are you talking? How did that not add on time to his sentence? I could see if he was actually showing signs of him being rehabilitated, but this guy ramped up the violence and they were like, yeah, he's good to go. Are you kidding me?
Set free on April 18th.
What?
And within just 24 hours, Terry Radford would be brutally killed.
Oh my gosh.
Gavin was sentenced to 21 years in prison, and during his trial, it was revealed that no drugs were found in his system. And instead, this all seemed to be the result of some sort of psychotic episode that just so happened to be captured on camera in one of YouTube's darkest videos.
He should get life. Bump the 21 years. That man should get life. I mean, another great video by Nick Crowley, but some of these, man, thankfully this wasn't as bad as the Darkest Kids TV show ever made. That one still has me messed up, but yeah, I can't understand why they would ever release that guy. I mean, are you kidding me? If he was in, I have to think that if he was in the States, they would have gave him a lot more time for all that stuff he did in prison. But anyway, guys, I would love to hear your comments down below about which one you thought was the most concerning and unsettling video. And also make sure you always show your support to Nick Crowley and his channel. A lot of great content. Please go over there, like his video, subscribe, all that good stuff. And if you enjoy the reaction, give me a thumbs up, share, and subscribe, and I'll be back with some more reactions. Peace!